Hey, you folks, Quill18 here, and welcome to Europa Universalis 4 Patch 1.6 and the new Wealth of Nations expansion DLC. Really excited for all this. This is a really major patch with a lot of changes, so we're going to go through the patch notes, and we're going to talk about what you get for free with the patch and what you get with the Wealth of Nation expansion pack. So I've loaded up my Netherlands game. Now, this is a game that I started in 1.5.1, so it seems to have copied over perfectly fine. I will say that if you happen to try to load up a game or start a game in Wealth of Nations and U4 crashes, check to see if you've got any mods. I actually had that problem because I was running the enhanced diplomatic view mod, which made this window bigger or something like that, and it caused crashes. So just disable your mods and wait until they get updated. But other than that, I seem to be able to load my old games perfectly fine. Keep in mind there may be a little bit of weirdness because I have loaded an older game with a previous version of DLC, so every now and again some of the behavior might be a little bit off, but seems to have worked okay at a glance. I will point out that I'm using the random new world from the Conquest of Paradise expansion, so that's why this is like that. Anyway, so let's take a look through the patch notes. So what Wealth of Nations adds are, actually, maybe I should start with the 1.6 stuff instead. No, whatever, we'll be fine. So Wealth of Nations add the following features. These are features you will only have if you have the Wealth of Nation expansion pack, which goes on Steam for, I think, $9.99 USD. So they've added privateers. So we can send light ships on privateering missions to trade nodes. Historically, privateers they're basically pirates that are backed by a nation. So they're not like acting independently. A fleet on a privateering mission will hoist the Jolly Roger. Privateers generate 1.5 times their trade power for the pirate nation. Pirate nation will act as a collecting merchant in nodes, sending nations. The sending nation receives 40%. Nations with over 20% of the trade power in a trade node receive a pirate hunt CB against the privateering nations. And there are several privateering specific events added. And there are no more pirates. So, if you have Wealth of Nations, you will not get the old school pirates that just sort of like spontaneously appear somewhere and are kind of a pain in the butt. Now, there's a new thing that will be a pain in the butt, but they will be backed by other nations, which makes it a much more interactive form of pirates. So what's the upshot of this? The idea is, if there are trade nodes where you really don't have a shot at competing in, you can't really send a fleet of light trade ships there to just, project some trade power. But you still want to go and screw up other nations. You can send your ships as pirates instead, and they will take a lot of the money away from that trade node, hurting your opponents, but also you do get a little bit of a cut of that by acting as a pirate. But again, it can generate CBs. Everyone will know who the nation that sent the privateers are, and it can generate CBs, so people can go to war against you for that. We can form some trade companies by assigning provinces to the trade company. I'm actually going to see if I can do that right now, because I do have some territory over here in the Orient. Now, I believe there's a new map mode, unless I am wrong, and I am never wrong. I might be wrong. Oh, maybe not. There was the colonial map mode. There we go. Trade companies regions. There we go. So we've got a few trade company regions. You'll notice they're all in the east. The colonial regions were always in the west, but the trade regions will always be in the east. And so what's the deal with these things? Well, let's go and take a look at Ceylon over here. I should be able to assign the province to a trading company. This will give you less tax on manpower, but increase its value for trade. So theoretically, I could get some tax money from Ceylon, except I don't because the cultural differences and the distance overseas and so on and so forth. So it's not really helping us there anyway, and it's providing us 0 manpower. Let's see what happens if we go and assign it to my trading company. So if we do that, it will give us 50% more local trade power. So we do have some trade power. 11.1 right now, okay. Reduces the tax modifier, well, I'm not getting any tax. Reduces the manpower, I'm not getting any manpower. Gives me more naval force limit, which is awesome. So let's go and do that. And it does say it belongs to a trade company, but I don't think it actually went. Let's toggle it back off. Oh, I think it may take a little while to build up, or maybe because the game is paused. Let's unpause a second. There we go. Trade power. It actually more than doubled just because of the way the multipliers work, I think. So that is fantastic. Got some CBs. All right, none of these are particularly relevant, but it massively boosted our trade power here. So the fact that we lose tax and manpower has no effect whatsoever. I love the fact that we got the bonus naval force limit. I actually didn't know that that was a thing. Oh, I love this new menu. Everything organized by category, including the missionaries, actually, which is a really nice Really nice screen. We can see what tiles are highlighted. This is actually incredibly convenient. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. All right, so yeah, those are the new trade companies, and that's all it is. You can toggle them on and off, but there's a lot of incentive to send your trade, make trade companies overseas because you gain more than you lose, but also if, oops, that's the wrong screen, if you have a significant percentage of a, actually, that's a good question. What do they did set it at 50%. Okay, there was some debate as to what they'd leave it at. If a single trade company controls 50% of the province trade power in an area, okay, so not provinces, but province trade power in an area, the owning nation gets an extra merchant. So there will be a lot of incentive for us so this is part of the South Indian Charter, great. For us to say, grab a bunch of Indian territory right here in this area, make it all part of our trade company, we would get a free merchant, and that would obviously be massively powerful for us. So I really love this new feature. I'm very excited about it. Anything else that's notable? Gains a bonus to goods produced proportional to... Oh, really? Every province in a trade company area gains a bonus to goods produced proportional to how much of the trade the company controls. Very interesting. Each trade company gets the generated names listed in the subject view. Several new events for trade companies. So let's take a look at the subject view. And we crashed. Oh, no. Uh-oh. Might be because I'm recording, but let's find out. Okay, and we're back. Looks like it was actually a conflict with my recording program. Hopefully, we're crossing our fingers that there will not be another issue over there. So we're right back where we were. Ceylon is part of a trade company. And so in the subject view, we can see the Dutch South India Company is a trade company under our control, which is pretty cool. Currently controls 24.6 of the province trade power in South India Charter. There's a total of 106.5. Wow, that's actually shocking, the fact that we have one province and it's giving us that much trade power. But of course, it's an important center of trade with plus 10 local trade power there. And what I do like is if you do pop over to the trade map mode now, it'll give you little icons showing the important centers of trade. So we might want to prioritize getting Cochin over here, which has a base trade value of 19.5. And so if we trade company that up, we may almost start to get at the 50% just by itself. Not to mention, of course, we can go ahead and build some trade buildings over here, which becomes that much more important by building a trade depot over here. Of course, it's a depot. We'll get a bonus to our trade value there, which will also get multiplied by different things. So I like this new mechanic. I'm really excited to explore it. Anyway, we've talked enough about that. Let's move on. Buildable canals. It is now possible to build the Kiel Canal, the Suez Canal, and the Panama Canal. And of course, some people will point out, oh, this is a bit ahistorical. These canals, you know, didn't get built until later on. But, you know, the whole point of this game is a variety of little what ifs. It is very hard to build the canals. You do need, I believe, oh, it's tech level 20. And 50,000 gold and ownership of the specific province. So I actually don't know which province exactly you need for the canal. I thought it was Dumyat, but I might be having this completely wrong, so don't quote me on this. But what does the canal let you do? Well, it lets you sail ships through it, which obviously is very powerful. The ability to sail ships from the Mediterranean into the sea here, as opposed to going around the Cape, is going to be gargantuanly powerful. Now, the canals, obviously, in my my randomized new world, I assume is not a possibility. I hope that they're enabled in general. I'm just assuming that we can't build a Panama Canal anywhere in the new world here. So they're very expensive, they take a lot of investment, but man, the value that you get out of that is stunning. Now, as far as I know, so having a canal will boost trade power in the province, allow the transit of ships at naval distances. They're visible on the map. They take about 10 years to build. As far as I know, they are open to everyone. I think it just counts as almost like a quasi-sea space or sea connection there. I don't think you can restrict access to people, but I might be wrong. We'll have to see how it goes. We haven't seen anything in the patch notes, and I don't remember hearing anything in the developer live streams about that. But I might be totally wrong. So there's a new CB. There's a justified trade conflict possibility. A trade conflict can be justified against another nation when there's a node where you have at least 10% of the trade power and they have at least 20% of the trade power. Gives a trade conflict CB. So this is something that can be manufactured. So, wow, that is a busy screen now. So let's see if it's possible to do against England. It's just me, or is that icon different? Oh, shows me a couple. Oh, we already have a trade dispute CB. Look at that. So we got that for free. Oh, because I think they're blockading me. That's true. Call in allies. I love the fact that you can choose which allies to include from this menu. This is like one of the greatest changes. Oh, stunningly good. Covert actions. Justified trade conflict. So we can definitely justify another one. Now, we already have a CB because they're embargoing me, but if they weren't, I'd still be able to justify a CB with this. Now, the victory conditions will be a little bit different, of course, if we, the trade dispute, the sort of war goal. What am I looking for? The ticking war goal kind of thing. The actual war goal is superiority, so that's the win 80% of the battles type thing, as opposed to, taking a specific colony. And we get bonus prestige and a reduced cost for claim revocations, monetary reparations, concession of defeat, and 50% trade power trade-off. So we don't get a discount on taking territory, which obviously makes a heck of a lot of sense. Again, this is part of Wealth of Nations. This is not part of the free patch. The fervor feature for Reformed Religion. It's interesting that it notes that it's part of Wealth of Nations. I thought it was going to be free, but apparently not. Now, I'm not going to be able to show that here because we are still Catholic in this game. But if we were the Reformed faith, we would start to accumulate fervor points. Every month, we get a certain amount of them, and then there's 3 buttons we can click. We can spend it on military, diplomatic, or trade actions. And you can activate as many of them simultaneously as you want. They can all be off, all be on, or you can just have a few on. And each one of those costs 5 fervor points per month. But while they're on, you get a pretty significant boost to those different areas, which is not actually listed in the patch notes here. You can store up to 100 fervor points. So some people might keep one on almost all the time, or some people might keep them off most of the time, unless they want like a specific boost, a burst of action to be able to take place. Personal deities for Hindu rulers, which is quite cool. There's up to 6 possible deities. Each deity gives you a specific bonus, and a deity pick stays until the monarch dies, or there can be events that remove it. There are several new deity-specific events, and 50 unique Hindu events, and 41 unique event pictures. Wow, maybe I'll have to play a game over here in the subcontinent. That would be quite exciting. Especially in a multiplayer setting, because people are going to come over here to take over the trade areas. Might be quite fun, actually. One of the new options, we can request trade power from another nation diplomatically, and I can request 0 to 100% of the trade power, which, if accepted, will be counted as yours. Until the transfer is canceled, the party receiving trade power cannot declare war on the giving party, which is kind of a cool diplomatic action. Let's see where that might be. Ask if France wants to transfer part of their trade power to you. They're definitely in the no pile right now, but that's probably because they don't, we're not allied with nor guaranteeing France. Interesting. And they hate me. But that's very interesting. So if we had started guaranteeing someone or had an alliance with someone, see, these guys would agree. Savoy would be very willing to trade up to 75% of their trade power to me. They would be happy to do it. Well, that's very interesting. Huh. And yeah, we can't declare war while that's happening, so we'd have to cancel this first and then declare war on them. Wow, this actually seems like a really good idea. I don't see why we wouldn't do this. I don't know. I'll go ahead and send it in this game here. And again, we'll let it tick for a sec. We'll probably get a few pop-ups. Look at that. That's fantastic. Which will give us even more power in the Genoa trade node. Very exciting. What's next? Designate trade port. Oh, this has a lot of people really excited. So, right in the old way, the old system, if you were not collecting trade, right? So you're with your merchants, you can either transfer trade or collect trade. And by default, you would collect trade automatically in your home trade node. So wherever your capital is. So my capital is in the province of Holland, and Holland is in the Antwerp trade node. So here, despite the fact that I don't have a merchant, I auto-collect trade from here. But I could also, I could decide to collect trade somewhere else. Like I could try to collect trade in London. It wouldn't make much sense. I'd be much better off transferring trade from London to Antwerp. But there were other possibilities. One of the possibilities, when you're playing as Morocco, your capital starts off, I believe, as Marrakesh. I might be lying. Starts off as Marrakesh. But if you are able to take over the territory over here as Morocco, you have great incentive to move your capital into the Seville trade node. That way you can collect trade from here. The reason that, and of course, and I keep getting ahead of myself, you can collect trade from another node by sending a merchant there to collect trade explicitly. But you get a penalty to that. You will lose some of the money because you are not collecting trade from your home node, they call it, the trade zone where your capital is in. But what you can do is you can designate a province as being your trade capital now. So how do we actually do that? That's a good question. Your main trade collection point is now your main trading port instead of your capital. Main trading port is located in your capital by default. Main trading port can be moved for a cost of 300 diplomatic points. Oh, it's right up here. There we go. So just like moving a capital, which you can do by clicking this button, except you can't do it while you're at war, you could also click here to move your trading port. It does cost diplomatic power, but it may very well be worthwhile because it costs diplomatic power instead of, I believe, administrative power. And then it lets you do a few cool things, like you can keep your capital in one place if you want it there, but then, yeah, move your trade node somewhere else. And then you would default collect from that different trade node. It's not going to matter for a lot of people, and it's a bit, maybe a bit advanced for some players, but it's going to be really handy for certain nations. And it's been requested for a long time. Inland trading is the next big change in Wealth of Nations. Several trade nodes in the game are designated as inland trading nodes. So if we take a look at that, so they will have a special icon right there. So this is a normal trade node, which is a sea-based trade node. This is an inland trade node because it has an icon here. Having a merchant present that collects in an inland trade node or steers towards an inland trade node will give you extra trade power in that node based on your trade efficiency. Some nations, and this is a big difference for anyone who plays like kind of a landlocked nation, because they didn't really have a lot of trade power available to them because you couldn't send ships. Right? A lot of the trade power that you get in a node is by having light ships patrol it. Well, you can't do that on a long landlocked node. But now there will be different ideas and characteristics that can affect how much trade power you have on an inland setting. And it makes it a lot more viable and interesting to do the inland stuff over here. Oh, religious violence. Is that what that stands for? Show province. Huh. Interesting that would show up on the map. In trade map mode. Curious. Anyway, moving on. So that, I mean, I don't know how big of a change that will be. We'll have to see exactly how that affects things. But it does mean that whereas normally you would almost completely ignore trade as a landlocked nation, now you've got an extra bit of gameplay. A couple new peace treaties. When you declare peace, or when you negotiate peace, you can enforce military access or fleet basing right access, which I like a lot. It always sucks that you could never get military access to someone who hates you, right, or who's your rival. But it totally makes sense that if you knock someone down in the war, one of the things you can negotiate for in the peace deal, let's go see if we've got it here, treaties, there we go, is I get access to your land to march troops through there. I really think this is incredibly useful, incredibly handy. Cannot be canceled until the truce is over, so you're going to have like 5 years worth of military access to walk through their land, so you can use that as a stepping stone to reach other people. I think that's a fantastic change. Merchant republics have apparently been enhanced. They now give a bonus to goods produced in provinces that they do not own, proportional to how much of the trade in the area they control. So I think the idea with that is, say, take Venice over here. There's very little reason for Austria to not crush Venice by default every game. It's easy territory for them to grab. It'll give them a lot of trade power, high base value provinces. Why would Austria not shatter Venice every single time? Well, the reason is the more trade power that Venice has, the more they boost the production now in the other provinces in this trade node. So now all of a sudden Austria has some incentive to maybe keep these around because it's indirectly affecting the wealth of Austria. Maybe. We'll see how much of an effect that has. We'll see. Dynamic province names. Names can now be scripted to be unique for either the province owner, the province culture, or the province culture group. Activating dynamic province names is now a gameplay setting. Presumably in here somewhere? Or maybe when you set up the game. It's probably when you set up a new game, actually. Not going to be under video. Yeah, Seems unlikely. So maybe when you set up a new game, that's kind of interesting. So provinces will be renamed based on appropriateness for whoever's controlling it, I suppose, at the time, or the culture. And there's some new ship models included for some of the new vessels. And that brings us to the end of the Wealth of Nations. Everything else that we're going to talk about now is going to be included for free in the 1.6 patch. So, biggest, I think, change to how gameplay functions will be the new rival system and the associated power projection system. Now, to me, it's interesting because it's not like a button that you're really using or anything like that. It's kind of like a soft feature that's happening in the background, but that will dramatically change how you play. So, let's talk about the new rival system. So, in the olden days, you could rival absolutely anyone you wanted. Oh, apparently you can no longer change a rival during war. I don't think that used to be the case. And maybe this is a bad example here. Let me, I'm not going to save this game. Let me just see if I can piece these guys out. No? What do you want in exchange for peace? Okay, I'm just going to, I'm so not saving this game because I don't actually want to peace out like that, but there we go. So now we're at peace, so we're going to be able to make some changes. All right, so, the rivals got reset now, thanks to the fact that we're outside of war. In fact, I think we got a pop-up to say that the rival was no longer valid. So instead of being able to choose absolutely any nation in the world to set as a rival, when you click here, you will get a list of appropriate nations. These are nations that are relatively similar in size and have conflicting interests with you. Basically, the player will now pick rivals very similarly to how the AI used to pick rivals. They didn't pick random people, they picked people who were appropriate. And I think this makes a lot of sense. It would make no sense at all for me to say, declare Alsace to be a rival. They're not. They're insignificant. And vice versa. It makes no sense for them to claim that they are, that they rival me. It's like, no, you're not even in my neighborhood here, buddy. But all these guys certainly are. Austria, England, Ottomans, and Russia. Sure, these guys are really, really on my level. Actually, it's really interesting that France is too puny now to be my rival, which is actually a little bit annoying. But there you have it. And so what you do, so you choose someone appropriate. So we're going to take, we'll take England, definitely, as a kind of a trade rival. You get more prestige from defeating them, no trade efficiency penalty when embargoing, bonus of spy offense, and 33% less diplomatic power cost for demanding provinces in the peace deal. Yeah, okay, fine. Standardy kind of stuff. And we'll also throw down against perhaps Austria. Sure, that makes some amount of sense. So now I've got this power projection rating. And as I take actions against my rivals, I will gain power projection points. Or vice versa, as they take actions against me, or if I fail to take actions against them, I will lose power projection. And it's pretty potent. Right now, so based on how high your power projection is, you will get more trade power, better morale, better defense. And then there's certain breakpoints. If you get to above 25, you get to have an extra leader without upkeep. So in your military screen over here, right now I'm actually above my upkeep. I've got, I can have 2 for free, and I've got 3 that I'm upkeeping. Of course, your king or heir never costs you any upkeep there. So if I could get up to plus 25, I would be able to have one of these guys for free, which would actually save me a military power point right now because I wouldn't be over my limit. And then most notably, if you get above 50, you get plus 1 power point of each type per month. Very, very huge. There's going to be a lot of incentive to try to keep above 50. There's no penalty apparently for going negative. Or at least you won't lose power points. It's possible that your trade power and morale will suffer. I think originally that used to, but I think they decided to make a change that power projection would always be a net bonus. But of course, if you are not at 50 power projection, you're going to feel like you're missing out on some power points there. So we are going to want to earn a few extra points. So one of the things we could do right away, except for the fact that I don't have a diplomat, there we go, they're coming back, is I could embargo England. New rivals, trade power, okay. So I could, economic action, issue embargo against England. Boom, which earns me some extra power projection points. Also, apparently we get a bonus for long-time rivals, so that will build up over time. I already got 1 point out of it for Castile. Obviously, I've been rivals with Castile for a long time, but not since Wealth of Nations came out. So we lost the CB against England because they were embargoing me, and now that I'm embargoing them back, we're on equal footing there. So we'll do that. We'll wait for a diplomat to come back, and I guess we'll embargo Great Britain. We got a colonial CB against Great Britain. We've got that. Now, if I go to war with them, if I defeat them in war, I will get gargantuan amounts of points. Switzerland is rivaling me. Oh, now that's ballsy. France is rivaling. Okay, there's gonna be a lot of these pop-ups because I'm loading an old game and everyone is flipping things around here. We are going to... Oh, we have a truce, so I can't embargo Austria. Well, that's kind of annoying. And I lost a point from embargoing Castile, interestingly enough. Anyway, there's going to be a lot of fun there. We're definitely going to want to go to wars against our rivals. And specifically in this game, I think we're due for a war against Castile. So then we will get lots of power projection points, and that'll be fantastic. So we'll definitely take a look at that soon. And again, that is a free feature. And I'm really excited to take a look at that. Oh, the policies. This is fantastic. So if we look at the missions and decision screen, there are far fewer national decisions than there used to be. And that's because a lot of the things that used to be these national decisions that are kind of no-brainers or weird or I don't know, are now part of policies. And we can add policies if we want. And these are based on what ideas we have unlocked. Right now, I actually can only do one of these. I could implement superior supply systems if I would like. And I can do that because I've completed quality ideas and exploration ideas. If we take a look at our idea screen over here, you can see, yeah, exploration is done, quality is done. Okay, so I can implement this. It would reduce my land attrition by 25%. Well, that's good. I don't think it's like it's crazy, but it's certainly good. So if we were to go ahead and click on this, for example, it would cost me 1 military power each month. And has to be active for at least 10 years before it can be canceled. So you can't just enact policies willy-nilly. There's a cost, and you can't take them away right away. Now, is it worth 1 military power each month to reduce my land attrition by 25%? I'm not sure if I'm convinced about that, and especially at this stage of the game, because I'm mostly going to be fighting in high supply areas. It might help with sieges. Right, because sieges, you always have attrition. I'm assuming that affects there. So, okay, that's kind of handy if you're taking offensive action. Now, these other 4 are grayed out. And why is that? Well, they show up in my list because they are based on at least one of the ideas that I've completed. So I have the exploration ideas completed, which is why colonial expansion shows up. But I haven't finished the expansion ideas, which is why it's not currently available. So this is actually pretty cool, an extra colonist just for having those. Now, certainly it'll cost me 1 diplomatic power point per month, but that's probably worthwhile for having 1 colonist at the right time, at the right place. More tradition. Hey, more infantry combat ability is really nice. Also, faster sieges is really powerful. Maybe I want to complete innovative ideas. I like this feature. It's interesting, meaningful decisions. Whether everything is balanced, whether they're all too weak or all too powerful, or a mixed bag of both, or whether they're actually properly balanced. It'll be time will be required to tell. But I really think these new policies are quite good. Also, I will point out that under the ideas, there has been a shift of, does it not show up here? Espionage ideas is now a diplomatic idea, right? Used to be administrative, it's now diplomatic. And expansion ideas used to be diplomatic, and it is now administrative, which is a little bit weird because, again, I had an existing game that sort of moved things over. It's kind of annoying that I've got both administrative ideas and expansion ideas soaking up my admin PowerPoints, whereas before they weren't. But I am a giant fan of this, generally speaking. It sucked that as someone who wanted to do overseas colonization and trade, you had to dump all your diplomatic points into exploration and expansion ideas here, which would mean your ships and your trade range and your colonial range were delayed because that's all part of the diplomatic tech group. I love the idea. Oops, oh man, I may have overextended. I love the fact that now you can sort of break those up. I think expansion in administrative also makes a lot of points. So whether you're doing the colonial game or the merchant games, now your points are spent a little bit more reasonably. Also, I think espionage being part of diplomatic also logically makes a heck of a lot of sense. Espionage is sort of diplomacy type thing. Now, whether espionage ideas are worth taking yet remains to be seen because they were generally considered to be a bit weaker, but we'll see how it goes. What's next? 10 new achievements. Hurrah. The new trade conflict CB. Again, we talked about that earlier. It is part of the base game now. There's a new colonial region in Australia. So if we take a look at the colonial region and we find Australia over here, which we can barely see. Well, that's a shame. It's a new colonial region, so if you do colonize here, after you get to, 4 colonies, they will break off into a colonial government, which I think that's perfectly appropriate. Don't mind that at all. Oh, one button I'm really excited about. Let's find ourselves a large navy. Perhaps this one. There is a new button here for Right here. For detaching obsolete ships. So that's the new pirate button. That's very exciting. So right now it doesn't apply here because all my ships are currently up to date. But what can happen a lot in the later game, you can have navies that have some of your latest and greatest ships and some old ships that are no longer up to date, and they will never update. They're not like land units. So at some point you might want to break them off to disband them. Makes it very easy to do that. So you can do it, or even if not, disband them, maybe put them in a safer area where they're not going to do combat, especially for maybe light ships so they can still project trade power or whatever. But it's probably, at a certain point, you definitely want to scrap all your old out-of-date ships. So really, really handy button to do there. Improved macro build, so that's the interface over here. So land units divided from naval units, from buildings, make core, very cool little function there, send missionaries, the harsh treatment, quite handy. Oh yeah, so it is showing the revolt risk on that screen. That's actually really, really handy. That it's showing the current revolt risk and the cost in military power to do harsh treatment in different areas. Oh, I like that a lot. And change culture, again, showing the cost. Some people change culture a lot. I don't normally do it because it's so many points to do it. It really depends on where you are. It might make more sense overseas than here on the mainland. We'll see. What else we got? Change role of trade. It's now possible to change the role of a trader without travel time. There we go. That is really handy because right now, if I wanted to flip from transfer trade to collect trade, I would have, in the old way, I would have had to recall him and then redeploy him, which takes a lot of time. Now I can just flip his behavior just by clicking that button. That makes a lot of sense. There's some new ship classes, new religions, the Coptic and Ibadi-Sikh. So the, oh, wow, that's just, this whole paragraph is written terribly. There's missing some commas and stuff like that. So the Sikh will appear later. The Coptic and Ibadi will be at the start, most particularly in Ethiopia. Ethiopia starts the game in the old system started off as Orthodox, but now if you were to start a new system as of patch 1.6, they would start off as Coptic. Very unique and standalone religion. They would be more or less alone in the world. A little bit sad. What else we got? Administrative efficiency. Okay, this is another gargantuan change to the game. So one of the things they're changing is that integrating a vassal or annexing a vassal will now cost diplomatic points to do. So is there any chance, am I doing one right now in this game? I am, actually. So I am spending 15 diplomatic power points each month to annex, who is this? I'm annexing Guyenne and Morocco. So I'm spending 15 diplomatic points for each of those every month to annex them. Now, the speed at which you annex, especially smaller nations, will be much, much faster. You always spend 15 diplo points a month, assuming you have the diplo points, but the total cost is based on the tax base of the total tax base of the vassal multiplied by 15. So small provinces can annex like almost instantaneously. Larger ones will take longer, but more importantly, it costs a lot of points. And I think what they were trying to do, they were trying to get away from, I don't know if it's an exploit or gaminess or whatever, but by far the easiest way to expand to save yourself administrative points from coring is you would, in a war deal, say, you would annex a territory, then you would instantly release it as a vassal. The vassal would have all the appropriate cores on there, so you wouldn't have to core it yourself, and then after 10 years you would simply annex that vassal and all the cores would flip to you for free, which was very convenient, saved you a lot of administrative power. Well, now there's going to be a cost to doing that. It's going to be diplomatic power instead of administrative power. So now you get to pick and choose. Do you core with admin power or do you annex with diplomatic power? And I think it makes sense that there's a diplomatic cost to this. We'll see what it does to warmongering, but the upshot of this, as you go into the late game, so once you get to admin technology level 23, 26, and 29, there will be something called administrative efficiency. Here we go. And what this does is it reduces the cost of overextension and war score of taking provinces. And so now in a peace deal, you're going to be able to start taking many chunks. Like if I ever went to war with Russia, instead of only being able to take, 3 or 4 provinces in the peace deal and using up 100% of my war score, assuming I had all the way up to 75% administrative efficiency, I'd be able to take quite a bit more territory in one fell swoop. It would reduce the overextension and I think the aggressive expansion. Doesn't say aggressive expansion, so that might be wrong. But certainly the overextension, which would be really nice because right now I'm over the limit. Now, the other thing is coring time used to scale up based on the size of your country. So if you're a big country, like the Netherlands have gotten pretty big at this point, coring something would take an extremely large amount of time. That has gone away. So it becomes more viable to core things at this point, but it becomes less viable to annex them through vassalling. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how that plays off. There's a new launcher for the game. It's very sexy. I'm very excited about it. Papal automation is really cool. So in the papacy here, there is a button. So instead of like getting my pop-up to say that, hey, someone beat me in this, I can just hit the little button and it will automatically spend points to keep me in the #1 position at all these places. It also tells me how much I'm leading by. So here in the Netherlands, I have 105 points invested, but I'm only leading by 10. Whereas here I have 116 invested and that's it. No one else has ever invested anything else over here. And I think it's because I got him for free. So that's cool. I love this automation. Originally, this was going to be a part of the Wealth of Nation DLC, like a paid feature. But there was a poll that people made, and they decided to make this part of the base patch for free. And I think that's pretty fine. It's very convenient to do, certainly. And something related to Conquest of Paradise added a new siege, strip, plus assault and breach overlays for Native Americans. I have no idea what that means, but there's also more events for Native Americans. And there's a lot more balance changes as well. Some of them we have discussed, some of them we have not. And the list there is actually way too big. The remainder of the patch changes, the little balance tweaks, far too many, too numerous to mention, but there'll be a link down below to the full patch notes if you're curious about that. Anyway, that brings us to the end in this video. I am really personally very excited about this expansion, and I look forward to playing it. See you next time, folks. Bye-bye. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, leave a comment. Did you know I read every single comment someone leaves on my video? That's insane. Why would I do that? I don't know, but I'll read yours.